Hello everybody, it is Christian from Cellsomatics for you today, and for this video I would like to discuss the topic of the obligation of having children. So this video is going to be my own personal opinion. You are allowed to disagree if you like, and I will also have to make the disclaimer that I might potentially delve into topics here that could get my channel shadow banned, at least down the line potentially. So if I catch myself saying any words that might trigger the system or the algorithm in any way, well, I might have to edit those out in the post-editing process of this video, so bear with me. Moving on. So nowadays we see, especially in Western countries, it is also discussed in China, that there is a tendency or trend for people to breed less. And by breeding less, we are essentially approaching, within a few generations, not very many, mind you, if the curve continues the way that it appears to be doing right now. So basically what you need to know is that in order for a population to grow in size, each family on average needs to have 2.1 children. Obviously you can't give birth to 0.1 children, but obviously what this means is that it accounts for potential deaths in infancy or whatnot. So basically we need 2 or more children per family for a nation size to grow. And this is not the case in a lot of Western countries in particular, and also, as far as I'm aware, in China. Because in these countries in particular, the whole notion of overpopulation being a thing discussed in media and in public is quite pronounced. So you might know someone, or perhaps even yourself, have this belief or this idea that Earth is overpopulated, that the resources are scarce, that there's not food enough for everybody, and that we are essentially running out of space. So this is quite a widespread belief that I believe many people hold, especially people who are empathetic and who care about the world and the state of the world, right? But in my research and understanding, this is not actually the case. There's not a scarcity of resources, and if there were, well, perhaps we should start looking at some of the hidden black project technologies that are out there, which would have been able to solve our technological hang-ups within very few years. So it is my conviction that we are in fact set back around 200 years technologically as to where we were supposed to be. And so taking that into account, and taking into account the technologies and options that are actually available for renewable energy, even free energy, as well as regenerative agriculture. So with all these in mind, I don't think we actually have a resource crisis. Rather, I think we're intentionally being put in a position where technologies and information is being withheld to such a degree that we are not really given the keys to unlocking our potential as a species, and thus allowing the growth of the species in a manner that is proportionate to the technological capabilities that we actually have available nowadays. And it is true that in certain continents like Africa and the Middle East in particular, the populations are growing quite steadily and well, because these people are not being fed the clear lies and deceptions that we need to breed less. And so we're essentially in a predicament here where especially Western societies and China are approaching a societal collapse within perhaps just a few generations, to be fair. And this is not a situation that I personally wish to see. I indeed think that people should start taking accountability for this very problem that is not being discussed in media. And when looking at, say, media and various large organizations spanning around the world, various prominent figures and such, talking about this topic, it is not so far-fetched to come to the conclusion that I have through my own findings that depopulation is being pressed upon our human population. So there might very well be a wish for certain people, because you see, humanity as it is nowadays, we are at a flipping point, a turning point here, where human existence, or biological humans, may soon become rather redundant. So with the advent of various technologies, robotics, AI and whatnot, well, what is the use case for all these 8 billion people on the earth? Because so many people will be turned to redundancy with the influx of these new technological eras that we are approaching very rapidly. So the solution then could be to actually allow people some less working hours every week, to allow more automation that will give us all more freedom in our lives. That could be an ideal option and way to handle these things. But there are people out there who are convinced that it might be better suited to simply off a lot of the human population. There have been certain guide stones in the US that have recently been taken down as well, that commented on the future prospect of humanity being reduced to a mere 500 million. So you can take that how you will. I do not have any further comments on that in particular, because we don't want to get too much into that. But on the topic of depopulation, I mean, there's very prominent and outspoken people who have commented on this, and I will not list everybody, but for instance, a very funny one that I came across one time was Sadhguru. You might know him, Indian guru type of guy, and he has a quote where he said, the way to reduce the human footprint on the world is to reduce the number of human feet in the world. And he has also been quoted of saying to don't get a child, get a dog instead. Well, this is a clear representation of someone literally promoting a depopulation agenda, right? And we also have someone like Gil Bates promoting depopulation quite clearly, saying that he has a wish for the world to start reducing the number of people by breeding less. And you can also begin to question all the xenoestrogens, the phytochemicals, all sorts of things polluting our environment nowadays, decreasing our fertility levels, and I mean the list is pretty much endless at this point as to how much toxicity we're exposed to in our lives that affects our fertility. So even amongst a lot of people having a wish to get children into this world, well, a lot of people do find great difficulty in actually being able to become pregnant and conceive without stillborn babies in their stomachs, right? So we're really at a crisis point here, in my view. So it is very clear, at least in my own opinion, that there's quite a lot of misinformation and propaganda being spread around the world in media, and we can especially see this in the degeneracy of society, especially in the Western world, because this whole over-sexualization, this whole promotion of promiscuous behavior and promoting preventative methods for not having pregnancies, getting women, girls on the pill, all these sorts of things, right, rather than actually teaching them sexual kung fu, various tantra practices, and mastering their own sexual energy so they can actually control whether they want to have an ejaculatory orgasm or not. Instead of teaching people about these, we're just handing them pills and various other methods to prevent having pregnancies. And this leads to a society where sex is viewed as a commodity rather than a sacred union between two people, whereby you facilitate the opening for new life to be birthed into this world. And so through this sexualization of society, we have become largely degenerates in our minds and in our bodies and relation to the world. And through this degeneracy, we have come to a point where a lot of people, they care more about their own self-pleasure than they care about what is perceived to be a burden of bringing new people, good people into this world, because they're so fixated on their own comforts that they would rather just be sitting at home, masturbating, enjoying the life, watching Netflix, flirting with people, having casual sex, than taking on the responsibility that it is to carry on the species in a direction that is conducive to us all. And as mentioned, people have a very skewed perception of sex nowadays. So sex traditionally is about procreation. Sex nowadays has come to a point where it is largely viewed that you're simply using another person as an object of your own masturbation. You're just masturbating into another human being. There can be a lot of intimacy and all this, but really a lot of people, their whole mindset of getting into the sexual conduct is with this whole aim of getting to the finish line. A lot of the time there is not very much understanding of the underlying spiritual aspects of intercourse, as well as the potential for spiritual expansion and experiences to occur during these times with your partner. So we've come to a point where people view sex as something casual just for the sake of self-pleasure, without having to take into account the potential consequences that having sex with someone can have, which is the potential for having a child. And this is why we're in a situation, along with the media propagation, that we see the onset of a societal collapse in the world. And so with this mindset that a lot of people nowadays have towards this whole thing, and towards sex in general, towards themselves and their convictions of the world, well, is it really any surprise that the divorce rates are skyrocketing and that there's a rampant number of single mothers out there? So we see through statistics that the higher education level you have, the more likely it is that you have less children. So it is at least my speculation that we are approaching a potential situation here where there's also a quite degeneration of society, in the sense that if it is only the less educated folk who tend to breed more, and the more educated people do not, well, we're going to end up in a society that is generally less educated and dumbed down, isn't it? This is not a guarantee, it is just a potential that has at least crossed my mind. And so I think a lot of this really stems from how we teach children from an early age, because we are very much seeing the influx of a lot of fear being spread to small children about the potential state of the world in just a few decades, or say a century or what. Because you see, there's so many children nowadays who are literally stressed out in their day-to-day life, like minors, literally not being able to function, being anxious and depressed because they're fearful of the future that they're told about in the media and at school by their teachers, who also are taught by the media. So this is why a lot of people nowadays, they have this conception that we should not breed more people because, oh, this world is so dangerous, it is all going to collapse. I wouldn't want to bring children into this evil, bad world because I want the best for my future kin. And I very much understand this whole sentiment, of course, but it is not my own conviction or belief that this is really how we should go about it. Because you see, if the world is heading in a direction that is quite clearly negative, which it is, well, the way to handle that is to bring about a new generation of people who are well equipped to handle this situation. We cannot simply cower in fear and think that by way of a certain group of people breeding who perhaps do not really care so much about the future state of the world, that anything in the future is ever going to change. Those of you out there who are so set on improving the future state of the world, Well, the best way to do so really is to take accountability and responsibility for the people that are going to be here in the future. And that is not simply done by not having people come to the world. It is quite literally done by raising good, happy, functional children in this world who have an inner standing of themselves and who know the best way to deal with the world and its problems, because that is the only way that we as a species can really progress. The alternative, as I've touched upon, is really just societal collapse, and that is not going to progress us very far. That is, if anything, just going to set us back even further, I believe. And you know, one of the things in life that I consider to be truly some of the most valuable is one's ability to have impact and influence on the world and society. Because say you are someone intelligent, you are empathetic, you are compassionate, you wish the best for everyone around you and the world at large, well, why shouldn't such a person seek to have significance, impact and influence on the world? If their intentions are true, that is what we need more of. So one way that I see that we can quite easily have more impact and influence is to raise good, happy, functional, inner-standing individuals who are able and equipped to take care of themselves, take care of those around us, and especially the world at large. And that is why, in my view, having children is an obligation. If you are out there, you're intelligent, you're capable, you're functional, well, go breed. That is my advice to you. I wish you all the best, and it is my pleasure. Have a wonderful day.